All righty. So, good evening. Good evening. We are saying hello to everybody. I do want to say that we are here on today talking about domestic violence. And the month of October is Domestic Violence Awareness. And with Young Women of Favor, we always come every year to talk about domestic violence and how we can help one another and show support and be able to give some guidance and some resources available to everybody, not just women, but even to men, because there are men that are raising their daughters. There are men that have sons that they're raising, that this information can help them as well. We're going to be talking today about the cycle is real. The cycle is real. Domestic violence is real. Sexual assault is real. We're going to be talking about healthy relationships. We are not experts, so we're going to just give you some basic points, facts. Um, you're going to hear today from Karen, who is a survivor of domestic abuse. And she's also going to share about She's Ministries and her affiliation with Star Hope. You're going to also hear from First Lady Shante Francis. She's going to talk about the marriage podcast and how she and her husband use that podcast to promote healthy relationships. So, good evening, ladies. Thank you, thank you, thank you for taking the time to be a part of Young Women Favors Diva event. Um, Thank you for the change, because usually we always have it at the church, but with COVID and the different things that's going around right now and happening, everything is changing. So we're going virtual. So this is our first virtual for the DVA event. So again, I want to thank you. Thank you. You all have anything you want to start off saying and share first before we go into the facts?
Well, I want to thank you. Thank you for inviting us to join you today, and just encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. Domestic violence is definitely something that's important for to be aware of, and for people to receive as much information and knowledge as possible. And I'm glad that this is something that you have done every year to bring more awareness to the signs of domestic violence, as well as giving resources for what people can do if they do find themselves in a domestic violence situation. And then always going as far as to give tips and insight to know what a healthy relationship looks like. That's very important in this day and time, even now more than ever. And I think this is very great. And I applaud you for your efforts in bringing awareness to domestic violence.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I thank you as well. And I'm honored to be a part of this today. As being a survivor, it's always encouraging to others, but also encouraging me to keep going. Give me strength to keep going, to keep telling my story. So I applaud you and thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome, 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 welcome. Well, we know that domestic violence is a big thing. It's something that's happening every day. Every 3 seconds, there's some type of domestic violence that is occurring. Over 10 million people in the United States have endured some type of domestic violence. So it is real. It's real. And one thing that we want to be able to open up and let our audience understand, be able to understand that with domestic violence, it starts early and it starts at home. In the environment where they were raised, and different things like that, for us, the abuser, the person that's abusing the other person, the perpetrator, as we would say. They see it as their a little child. They grow up, and in their relationships, they take it over to the relationships. then as they become an adult, it gets worse because this is what they see. This is what they hear. And when we talk about domestic violence, the first thing you hear is all about physical. But domestic violence goes beyond physical. It's emotional. It's mental, you know, and it can really affect a person. It doesn't matter. And the one thing about the domestic violence, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter about race. It doesn't matter about that you're rich or you're in a low income bracket. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But what happens is, if we know that it's a sickness, and we know that it's a form of power and of control. So we also know that you don't have to stay in that you can get help. But what happens is, so many people, so many women, we're going to say women, that's what we're going to focus on today for the most part, are afraid to leave. They're afraid to leave because their self-esteem has already been demolished or broken down. They fear that they can't survive because they have no income, because they were instructed not to work. You know, at first it started off like, oh, sweetheart, I don't want you to work. I want to take care of you, this and that, whatever. And thinking, oh, my husband, my man does not want me to work. You know, it comes with, what about my kids? Excuse me. What about my kids? What's going to happen to them if I leave? Where would I go? How can I live? How can I survive? Sometimes it gets so bad to that they have heard, if you leave, I will kill you. If you leave and go to your family, I will harm your family. Or if it's a kid that they may cling on to more for strength, they may try to use that child as a pawn. So it affects everybody differently. And people that have not been in an environment or have not experienced domestic violence, it's always easy for people to say, if I was you, I would do this and that, or I would put up with this. You really don't know what you would do until you're in it. The good thing about it, if you're a strong-minded person, you can have a chance. You can have a chance. If it happens to you the first time, you may be strong enough to decide and walk away. Because what happens, the cycle continues. It continues. It may just basically start out with, oh, honey, you know, I like your hair, but I really prefer long hair. But you love short hair. You've been wearing short hair forever. And you don't like the long hair because you don't like it all on your back. You don't like it because it makes you hot, or whatever the reason may be. But you thinking, oh, I'm going to go ahead and change my hairstyle because he likes this. He thinks I look like this if I do that. Then it can even go all the way up to your outfit. You know, different things like that. It can go with the things that you like to do. And then it gradually changes start coming. And now manipulation has settled in, and you're not even aware or not thinking about it. So, I mean, things start gradually because it's a pattern. It's a pattern in your relationships. So as women, we have to be mindful and take note of what's going on in our relationships. We have to know what healthy relationships are. And as we continue this conversation among the three of us, which we're sharing to everyone that is watching, we will talk about healthy relationships. Because in the midst of the beginning part of it, it starts advancing until like the honeymoon stages. So it plays in so much to where all of a sudden he may come, we're going to say he may come in and drunk one day, or a hard day at work, an upset, and may snap at you, may yank on your arm, may all of a sudden you say something that you would have usually said before, but all of a sudden it's offensive, and then calls off and hits you or slap you, or call you out your name. Well, at this point, you're stunned because this has never happened before. But what if it has happened before? Then what is said? What is the common thing that the perpetrator says? They'll never do it again. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. You caught me at a bad time. They may apologize then. They may apologize later. It may be the next day. But as the cycle continues, that individual, the perpetrator, continues to play on your emotions, on your mental status, on the way things are, to anything that he can gravitate to get to stay in power, to be controlled and have control over you. So these are the things that occurs in domestic violence. Family violence also is connected to the domestic violence because many a times the children are affected by the domestic violence. Why? Because sometimes they may get into the crossfire or getting hit and beaten themselves. They're called out of their names. They're scared to come home and show poor cause or say anything because it may increase rage. It may cause anger. It may cause some type of reaction that's going to reflect on them in a negative manner. So it just broadens out. So then what happens to the child? It goes on and escalates. So when they get into a relationship, they take what they see at home and it escalates and goes into their relationship. And it keeps going to their adult until they get help. The cycle can end. Generational curses can end. But you have to be ready to make that sacrifice. And there are so many resources out here that's available. We have the Fort Bend Women's Center. They're available for those in the Fort Bend County area, and I'm in Houston, so we're talking about, you know, what's local for us at this time right now. And then we have the Houston area Women's Shelter. They're available for resource, and these are shelters that you can actually go to where you can get a hot meal, have a roof over your head for yourself and for your children. They have resources that can help you financially. They have resources that can help you with your education, to continue your education, whether it's a GED or your college or whatever you're trying to do, or a skill that can help sustain you while you are making a transition. Okay, because when you're in a shelter, you're trying to get out and to transition back into society, and you want to be able to stand on your own, and you want to be able to provide for your children. So resources are out there. You have some shelters, they also have a program to where they will put you in an apartment for a year to 2 years, but you have to go through a program, and it helps you to where you bring you can increase your self-esteem again. You can feel comfortable about yourself. You can provide a positive atmosphere for your children. So there's resources available, and what we're going to do after this segment, you'll be able to go on Facebook under Young Woman of Favor, and you'll be able to see a multitude of resources that we will be posting every day in the month of October. Every day we'll be posting something, so you can actually have a guide or resource information that can help you, or maybe help somebody else that you know is going through this. A lot of people are ashamed. A lot of people are embarrassed. A lot of people make excuses. They blame themselves. Along with domestic violence also comes with sexual assault. And sexual assault does happen because sometimes the woman is forced by the perpetrator to have sex, or sometimes they just pretty much just rape. I mean, a husband can't rape his wife. It's known. It's not a taboo. It is known. It can't happen, you know, but a lot of people won't even report that. They just won't report. They won't report it because they're embarrassed and they want nobody to believe them. And those kids that are experiencing sexual assault, they feel like no one is going to believe them, so they hold this in. The perpetrator tells them, this is our secret. If you say something, this person will be harmed. They'll never believe you. So all of this plays in the domestic violence, the sexual assault. All of this becomes a cycle, but we have to try to end that cycle. So once again, just want to just give you a few little basic information about the domestic violence and about sexual assault. We want you to also know that it's not your fault. It's no matter what someone says, it's not your fault. Don't blame yourself or make excuses of why you're experiencing the physical aspect of it, the mental and emotional. When an individual is looking for power and control, they're trying to break you. They're trying to get you to the weakest point in your life so they can continue to manipulate you. And when you get to that point, you feel like you've given up. How they do that, they also use isolation. You get into these relationships, they'll tell you, I don't want you to be with that person, or you shouldn't go over there. Or no, honey, I thought maybe we'll just all spend time together, me, you, and the children. Or no, I don't want anybody to come over here. Or why is such a calling? Or I think you may not need to talk to that person anymore, or whatever. This person's not good for you, or whatever. Or he or she doesn't like me because I'm with you and they think you can do better. I mean, they find all kind of different things. So you just have to be aware. Anytime someone is tracking you and you're saying, on my way home, but I'm stopping at the store. The store is 10 minutes away, but they're clocking you every minute. Or why did it take you 12 minutes to get home when the store is only 10 minutes away? Okay, so you got some milk, you got some butter, you got some eggs, you got some meat. It doesn't matter. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about the time. That's the things that they're thinking about. You have to be able to be strong, but when you get weak on the spiritual realm, you can always call out to God. You can always pray. You can always get connected with a counseling, get connected with a group circle, a support group. There are always people out there. You may be in a situation and you may think that your neighbor, your coworker, have never experienced that, but you never know until you talk and share who has been going through the same thing that you're going through and how they made it out. It may be a way out for you as well. So don't give up and don't feel like that your life is over. You don't have to live in fear, but you have to make that determination of when you're ready to break the cycle. Because people in family, I'm aware, even in my family, people have moved people from the situation, but they've moved them, but they continue to go back because they felt like, oh, I love him. Or, men, oh, I love her, she loves me, or whatever the case may be. Because domestic violence does not just happen to women, it also happens to men. Big thing about it, a lot of men don't talk about it, but it does happen. Can't nobody make you do anything that you don't want to do, but you have to build the strength and the courage to walk away. And there's many times I have heard many people share with me that they had to develop a plan because some situations are worse than others. Some people are living with the trauma, living with the scars that they have to take with them for the rest of their lives. So these are things that that are sensitive, but will always be reminders. But also, I'm always saying to people, change a negative into a positive. The things that happen in your life doesn't always have to be a negative. It can be a negative situation preparing you for the purpose that God has intended for you to do on this earth. Your negative situation can transpire into a positive situation to be a blessing to others. Many people that have shelters, many people that are advocate for domestic violence and sexual assault or alcohol or drugs, whatever, they have been in the same situations, but they got out of it. They got out of it. Things have changed, and we talk about the power wheel and the different trainings that they have, and just from people coming out and actually having advocates speak at the domestic violence awareness that Young Women of Favor has had over the years. They talk about the power wheel. They talk about the different signs. They talk about how you can walk away. It talks about a system by different things. So it's ways that you can get about this. You don't have to be afraid, and you don't have to be ashamed. So on today, we'll break in the cycle, and I'm going to turn it over to Karen, because she has a story that she wants to share about herself, and it's a blessing. It's a blessing out of all of this. It's a blessing. And I truly believe that you will get something out of her story and where she is on today. Strength is within you. But you have to find that strength, and you have to give it with everything that you have to dig deep within yourself, because you are a survivor and you are victorious, and you can live beyond. Karen, you want to go ahead and share your story?
Yes, ma'am. My story began in the early 90s. Young girl in high school, and we got swept off my feet thinking everything was good. And as you spoke of being isolated, I was told that my parents didn't like that particular person for this reason, that reason. So it started with psychological things. It starts with my mind. And I started to develop ill feelings toward my family. So by me developing ill feelings toward my family, that made me get closer to my abuser. And in high school, and I got married at 17, and we moved away from my family. So that was the isolation. The physical abuse hadn't started. It was more like the mental and the psychological abuse, bringing me isolation, bringing me away from my family. So we lived in another city, beautiful home. I was continuing high school and everything, but it started then, the psychological began to be verbal, the yelling, the hollering. And nothing I did was right. Nothing I said was right. Nothing I wore was right. He began to pick out clothes. I couldn't wear shirts outside of my pants when I went to school. Things like that. The verbal increasing got worse. My self-esteem started to diminish rapidly. As I was going to school, I just wanted to just give up, but I think back now to why I didn't. I try to think back into that young girl of who I was or why, but instead of doing that, I just pull on the strength that I have now. The physical began one day. I came home from school, and we lived in a townhouse, so we had stairs. I can't recall, because I have memory problems. I have a head injury. So I can't recall exactly what led up to the argument, because it never was much. It didn't take much. And I was thrown down the stairs. That was the first incident where I realized that this is not right. Why didn't I leave that day? Because of the things he said. I'm sorry, y'all. It's because I love you. It's because you didn't do this right, or because you didn't do that right. The physical abuse escalated from being thrown down the stairs to breaking my pinky finger in the mirror in the bathroom, or being checked in my private areas just to make sure that nobody else had touched me, things like that. And I, at the time, was thinking, this is what it's supposed to be. This is what he was my husband. So, okay, I belong to him. So that is what's supposed to take place. He's just checking. He doesn't believe what I say, so he's checking. Being a 17, 18-year-old girl. When I had my first daughter in 1995, things started to subside a little bit because of my daughter. But after my daughter got a certain age, it started back. And I had my second daughter. Things got so bad where I was then getting guns pulled on me. My abuser would say he was going to work. He didn't allow me to work. He would say he would go to work, and then an hour later he would be back home just to make sure I was still home. I had to try to develop a plan to leave. Every time I would leave, he would tell me he would kill me. The only way I would leave him was going to be in a body bag. So I was scared. I was terrified. I didn't have any peace. My relationship with my mom and my family was distant because I really didn't want to hear what they had to say, because I knew what they were going to say. So I didn't want to hear what they had to say because it was so different from what he was telling me. So it was like I was yearning, I was eager for all the things that he said and nothing else. And the abuse kept going until one day I decided to leave. And I had my girls. And I decided to say, well, either I'm going to leave you or I'm going to die today. So I walked out the door. I was able to leave. But my self-esteem was gone. My confidence in myself was gone. Graduating high school, I didn't have a direction. I had plans to go to college, to be a nurse, everything, all of that was diminished because I was so beat down mentally, emotionally, physically. And that relationship led into another relationship. Yes. How did I get out of one abusive relationship into another abusive relationship 2.5, 3 years later? Because I had no confidence in myself. I had everything that I had prior to that relationship was gone. The person that I was gone. And my other 3 kids' father, he, like in the beginning, wasn't abusive either, but verbally starting to get abusive. The physical started, and then other things came into the relationship where it was even worse than the first marriage. Because he would just straight out just throw things at me just across the room. An iron, the ironing board, a pot. I'll be cleaning up, and it just would happen. And he would blame me. I would blame myself. I was so diminished to nothing at the time that I thought that this is what was supposed to happen. Even my family was telling me, you need to come back home. You need to come back home. But the shame of me coming back home, at that time, I would rather stay in a relationship, in a marriage that I was in, just for face sake. Sometimes we do things just for face value, and behind closed doors is hell. But I stayed for face value. And the verbal, the emotional, and the physical abuse got to a level where one time I was beat so bad that I blacked out. I had so many hospital visits, but this particular time here that I was beat so bad, my shoulder was out of place. I got kicked in my head so many times, I blacked out. And if you could ever watch a movie and wonder, and you see people, or you encounter an altercation and you wonder why people don't get up, if somebody study kicking you and why they're not getting up, you can't. I could literally see his feet kicking my head repeatedly. I could not move. I didn't feel a thing. I was limp. When I came to, I had to crawl to the door and get my neighbors downstairs to rush me to the hospital. The impact was so bad. This was 20 years ago. I still suffer. I still have to get MRIs and CAT scans randomly. I still suffer with my head from all the stitches. The pain at this time in my life, at almost 43, makes me not forget. I forgive. But all the pain that I still encounter from my hip, my shoulders, my arms, my head, it never will allow me to forget the things that I endured, the situation that I put myself into. And now at 42, I formed the ministry in January of this year to try to help other people, because now I have confidence in myself. It took me a number of years to get me back from all prior to the abuse, to find out who I was again, to get my identity back. It took me years. So I formed this ministry to try to give back and to help others, so it doesn't have to take 20 years for you to reform your identity, or not to even give your identity away to anybody again, because it's yours. And you should have confidence in yourself. No one should be hitting you, beating you, kicking you, verbally, psychological, mentally. Any kind of abuse is abuse. Sexual abuse, as Ms. D said, a husband can force himself on a woman. That's abuse. Your body does not belong to anybody else. God gave it to you. So I had to realize and get a closer relationship with God to realize He created me for better. He created me for a purpose. Now that I have found my purpose, I want to also tell my story over and over again as much as I can remember, to help others, so they don't have to go down the path that I went down to get to where I am. And my ministry is called She Ministries, Saved, Healed, and Empowered. And we are also partnered with Alpha USA. We help young women every Wednesday via Zoom right now, because we can't do in person. We counsel them, I help them, I tell my story. I listen more than ever now. I try to listen to people. I try to listen to my daughters. I try to see the signs. I don't want to just be the person that tell. I want to be able to observe things. And now that God has positioned me for this purpose, I'm aware of different signals in girls. I'm aware of different signals in women that I can say, oh, okay. Or I have that connection. I have that feeling now. So I know that God has positioned me for this purpose in my life at this time, to go back and help young ladies, to go back and help women that need help. And I'm just here. I'm just here because God has given me strength to be here. Hard as this is, to go back, I know I must go back to come forward to help others. And it's not easy, but God has given me strength to go forward.
Thank you, Karen. Sometimes it is hard to tell your story because it takes you back. People have scars, but with their scars, they're able to share their victory. They're able to share their victory. The scars brings out that you are a winner. You survived. You survived. And just like you survived, you're encouraging others and letting them know that no matter what it looks like, they can survive. And we don't want to just keep it to where it's just a husband and a wife. We want to also let college girls know and teen girls know that it can happen just for dating. Teen dating, is a little bit different, but well, let me say this, the difference of it is the peer pressure. You have peer pressure. as a team, because you have someone that is trying to push you to do something you don't want to do. You're trying to want to be part of an in crowd because you're trying to be noticed. And this all depends on where your self-esteem is. So if you're trying to be with the football player or the star basketball player, and they abuse you any kind of way or touch you, and you don't want to get them in trouble because of the scholarships that they're looking for, their future, mess with their future, or you start making excuses for yourself. But recognize the signs. Again, we're going to post information about the different resources and signs and what a healthy relationship looks like. People making fun of you as a teenager, or sharing your hurt. You may share something with somebody and they get upset with you and they decide they want to just share the secret, something that they had trusted in you to keep in confidence, but now they want to use it against you. The social media, bullying, this is part that also advances with domestic violence and sexual assault and things like that. Bullying, and this is something that everybody need to understand. Bullying is just not in teenagers. Bullying is also in adults. Okay, and most of the time when a person is bullying, they're trying to gain control. They want to be seen because they have issues that they're dealing with. They don't want to face their issues, so they want to go ahead and be the person that all the tension is on them. So they really live in a lie. They're wearing a mask. They're covering up themselves. They're expressing how they feel by trying to promote power and control, but in a negative way. So if you're in college, if you're in college and you're in school, think about when you walk in the campus late at night, thinking about when you're talking to a guy, thinking about the relation, thinking about the Greek parties and the fraternities and the sororities and the different clubs and organizations. Think about all of this because it can happen to you. Never say it can never happen to you. I don't know the correct name of it though, but we all know it as the date drug. Well, the date rape drug, where they can put something in your drink and in your food or whatever, and you can get raped. You don't know what's going on. You can't remember anything. These are different things that you have to be aware of. So when we're talking about the teens in college, intimidation still plays a part, just like it does in an adult. That teen boyfriend or that college boyfriend can also, abuse you. And then think about it. Not only emotionally and mentally, but when people are abusing you, they don't have to hit you in your face or anything like that. They can do it to where your clothing is covering up so no one can see that you're being physically abused. So these are things and tactics that you have to be aware of, okay? You have to be aware of. Sometimes if you come from an environment where the self-esteem is low, well, stay with him because he's a good provider. Stay with him because he's going to be this. Stay with him because he loves you. He really doesn't mean it. No, you don't have to stay with that person. You don't have to stay with that person because there's somebody else that will love you, but you got to love yourself first. Once you love yourself and know who you are in Christ, know your true identity, know what you're capable of doing, know what you desire to do, know what you want to do, recognize your purpose and things like that, then you don't have to settle. Generational curses can be broken. This is an ongoing cycle, but it can be broken. It can be broken. So another thing that you said, Karen, that is also so true, many victims, because they're still victims at the time, go into other relationships, repeating the same cycle. And again, the cycle can be broken. So, and it's hard. It can be very, very hard because, again, the question is, if I leave, then what? How can I survive? How can I provide? How will I keep going? That's why it's always smart to try to be a leader and not a follower, unless you're following a leader, someone that can leave in a positive and help motivate you, encourage you, and pour something positive in you. That's the only time that you need to be a follower. But you ought to be able to select people that have like values and like mindsets with you. You don't want to be around negative energy, people with negative conversation, people with negative mindset, people that's always talking down, you know. So these are different things that we need to just think about, just really think about. So with that saying, you know, like I said, there's a will for everything. So they have a will called equality. And there are 6 components of a healthy relationship. 1 is support, 2nd is trust, intimacy is 3, partnership is 4, 5 is autonomy, and 6 is communication. Communication is so important. So on the will, it has negotiation and fairness, seeking mutual satisfaction, resolutions to conflict, accepting change, being willing to compromise. In a relationship, consists of more than one person. It's 2 or more. So you have to be able to compromise. You have to understand that a person is on earth to grow. You should not be stuck. You should not be still doing the same thing. You should always be growing in life. So people that's been married for 10 years, 50 golden years, they have gone through some type of change. They're not doing the same things that they were doing when they got together 20 years ago. They're not doing the same things that they were doing with their friends, or they may have a new hobby or something, or something's changed about them. Their perception has changed, you know, in some form. There's change. So you're not the same person. So even in a relationship, you're learning, you steady learning your mate. You steady learning your children. It's a learning process. It's a growing process until you die. That's just simple. It's simple. So being a healthy relationship, non-threatening behavior, talking and acting so that she feels safe and comfortable expressing herself and doing things. You may not always agree with that person, with that person at all. You don't have to, but understand that they have a right to an opinion. No one is always right. No one is always wrong, but everybody is entitled to have their opinion. Everything is not a fact. Okay. Respect, listening to her, non-judgmental, being exceptional, affirming and understanding, valuing her opinions. So we just got through saying that it's all about respect. Everybody wants respect. Your children wants respect. You want respect as the individual. And the person whom you're in the relationship with, whether it's your boyfriend, whether it's your husband, your fiance, want respect. Trust and support, supporting her goals in life, respecting her right to her own feelings, friends, activities, and opinions. Everybody has to bring something to the table. Everybody should be open. Everybody should trust. He should trust her, and she should trust him. You ought to be able to walk down the street without coming home and say, who talked to you? Who saw you? You ought to be able to do that. Who's at that party? Who's at that house? Who's at your mother's house? Was your ex-boyfriend there? Because I know he's always around there because the family likes them. They don't like me. You ought to be able to say, this is how I feel. This is how I feel. This is what I don't like in our marriage, in our relationship. This is why I can't be with you. These are some things that are disturbing me that need to be changed. You ought to be able to have that conversation without anybody going violent in any capacity, okay? Honesty and accountability, accepting responsibility for self, acknowledging past use of violence, admitting being strong, communicating openly and truthfully. Communication. Sometimes a person may do it one time and never do it again. But what's the likely of that? Okay? It can happen, and it has happened. But mostly it's going to escalate. It's not you, it's the person. That person needs help. Even if you decide to go back to that person, be counseled. Both parties seek help. Seek help before running back. That means therapy, that means counseling on both. If children are involved, it means family counseling as well. We're not saying that our relationships will fail and will never get better. We're not saying that. But what we are saying that if it continues to escalate and nothing is being done about it, and no one is resuming responsibility, it will escalate. Okay? Responsible parenting, sharing parental responsibilities. It shouldn't be, that's your child, especially if it's a blended family. That's not mine, but he has a mother, he has a father. It doesn't matter. If you're in that relationship, it's a package deal. It's a package deal. Being a positive nonviolent role model for the children. You want your children to grow up being the best individual they can be. You want to be the best example. You may not have had that example growing up, but you can learn to have that example, to be that example. You can. It is possible. It's possible. How? By reading, counseling, observing, changing your mindset, growing your own strength, having a spiritual connection, being around like-minded people, exposing. It can happen. It can work. Share responsibility, mutually agreeing on a fair distribution of work, making family decisions together. Time has changed. It's no such thing anymore in 2020 is that I'm the man, you do as I say, when I say do it, how I say do it. Wrong. No, it's not. And that's over with. A woman can do just as much as a man can do. She has her opinion, she has her values. Women are stronger today because they have more strength. They believe in themselves. They're not depending on a man to take care of them. And it's okay. It doesn't mean they don't need one. They really don't need one. They just desire one. They want a man that's going to come into their life and complement their life, grow so they can build to have something. He has something, she has something. We can bring it together and we can build and maintain a healthy relationship with ourselves and with children. So that's very, very important. Okay. So it's no more that the woman does all the cooking and the cleaning. That's not real anymore. Everybody lives in that house. Everybody should have responsibility in that house. And how you work out your work schedule, who does what, that is something that is discussed among the family, among the parents, or among the two individuals. So, I mean, we have to be open-minded. I think that's a lot of things that the kids, I've heard kids say, and I've even said so, to older people, things have changed. We just don't do that anymore. We're changing for the better. We can step out on our own. We can stand on our own. We have a voice. We can be heard. So these are things that you have to think about. Economic partnership, making money decisions together, making sure both partners benefit from financial arrangements. That is so important. So if you are blessed and you have a spouse that says, honey, you can stay home, I'll provide for you. If he is generally providing for you, there's no violence. You're going to have arguments, you're going to have disagreements, but it doesn't have to be violent. It doesn't have to be unhealthy. It doesn't have to be disrespectful. That's okay. Enjoy being at home. Enjoy being at home, taking care of the kids and doing your own thing, whatever it is that you do. But if you're working, that's fine. But come to an agreement and share the responsibility, whether you're working or not working. There's responsibility for everybody in a relationship. So with that saying, I'm going to turn it over to First Lady Shante Francis, and she has a podcast with her husband, a marriage podcast, where they're promoting healthy relationships. First Lady, you want to go ahead and talk?
Absolutely, absolutely. My husband and I started the Marriage Coach podcast a few months back because we want to promote healthy relationships. It is our goal and our purpose to decrease the divorce rate and to educate and enlighten people that it is possible for us to have healthy relationships. We believe that with the right tools and the wisdom and knowledge and understanding of sharing in community, we are Christians, so we believe the word of God. We believe that, God created man and woman to be together in relationship, and that God designed for that relationship to work in harmony as a unit, as husband and wife. And we also, the podcast is not just for married, because we talk about single situations too. We talk about parenting. We talk about those that are dating, those that are engaged, that desire to be married. So this podcast, the Marriage Coach podcast, we're on all different forms of social media. We have iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora. We're on YouTube, and we post every week. And it is our desire every single week to make sure that we share the tools, the wisdom, and knowledge that we've learned in a 22-year marriage. And as I listen to Ms. Karen share her story, and as I listen to you, Dee, talk about different things that happen, and as we think about the Domestic Violence Awareness Month that will be approaching in October, I think about the fact that a lot of times we are in situations, or we get into situations because we don't have the proper tools, because we don't have the knowledge. And what we are doing on the Marriage Coach podcast is not just speaking to married couples about what married couples do, but we're speaking to individuals, because we realize that in any relationship, it takes two, whether it's a parent and a child, a husband and a wife, a boyfriend and a girlfriend, a fiance, a brother and sister, whatever it is. A relationship is two people that are living out things together, right? So we have all different types of relationships, and it's our goal to give you the tools to be able to make sure that those relationships are healthy, to be able to make sure that those relationships are productive, and also to make sure that you are aware of the signs when those relationships are not so good, when those relationships could be going to the left. We're teaching about recognizing the yellow flags, to know before we marry someone if this relationship is not going well. We always say on the Marriage Coach podcast, if you're dating and it's not going well, marrying each other is not going to fix it. Yeah. So we want the audience to be mindful of that. And we also want to give you tools mainly to better yourself as an individual, because how can we make marriage better? How can we make dating better? How can we make relationships better? Each person in the relationship has to focus on bringing the best version of themselves to the table. So if I work on being the best me and you work on being the best you, then we can have a good, healthy relationship. Everything that you just spoke about on that wheel, over the weeks as we produce podcasts, we will be discussing those things, because we realize that we need these tools. We need the knowledge in order to have better relationships, in order to have healthy relationships. I remember from the very beginning of you hosting the DVA event at New D, I learned some information attending that first event that I never knew about domestic violence. I learned some things that I never knew about things that happen in relationship, because if you have not experienced some things, you live in this place that I like to call La La Land. You live in the place of Skittles and rainbows, and you think, oh, just leave. leave, when it's going wrong. But sometimes the situation is not that easy, right? So what we want to do here is, if you are, before you get into the situation, we want to give you some tools to be able to see it. You talked about high school, and we're talking about, even in middle school now, in 2020 in middle school, they're dating. So you need to have the tools to know if this relationship is going to be productive, if this relationship is looking like it's not the one. And we want to make sure that we're sharing our experiences, as well as bringing people on the show to share their experiences and their knowledge, so that we can all live better. And I believe that that's exactly what you're doing with the Young Women of Favor, and bringing awareness to domestic violence, that it's not about bashing anyone. On the Marriage Coach podcast, it's never about male bashing. It's never about female bashing. It's never about bashing anything. It's about helping people become better. And that is the ultimate goal for the Marriage Coach podcast. So I invite everybody that's listening, tune in to the Marriage Coach podcast, and we talk about finances. We talk about family, blending families. We talk about resolving conflict, because a lot of times we don't know how to resolve conflict. You said something that is very true. Sometimes the perpetrator, they saw domestic violence in their own home. They experienced domestic violence as a child. If you saw your parents fussing, fighting, arguing all the time, then you think that that's okay. You think that's normal. If you saw dad fighting mom, you might think that's okay. You just think you're trying to prove your point. And then we live in a society where violence has become very prevalent. So we want to address all of these things, and to be able to give people tools, wisdom, knowledge, and insight, so that they can be better and have better relationships. And that's our goal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Awesome. And this is what we wanted to do with the Diva event this year. We had another plan, but God had something better. And we're just walking in the footsteps and walking His will on today. We are women that want to motivate, that want to encourage and pour into your life. We're here to support you. The marriage coach podcast is available. Young Woman of Favor, we are available. She Ministries available. So you'll be able, I'm going to post our information up, and you'll be able to follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. You'll be able to connect with us. You'll be able to get resources. So we're going to put all that information on up, so you'll be able to use it as a resource, and share it as a reference for somebody else. Okay, and we want you to understand that whatever you're going through, it doesn't always have to be permanent. You can be free. You don't have to stay in bondage. But what you need to understand, once you get out, to be able to live a purpose-filled life, you have to forgive. You have to forgive yourself for holding on so long and blaming yourself. You have to also forgive the perpetrator. Even if you have to write that person a letter, even if you write the letter and bury the letter, even if you go, and confront them, you have to forgive. You have to forgive. That is part of your healing. That is part of the process. And then whatever scars that you have, understand that those scars are a reminder and a blessing and a tool to be a blessing to someone else. So we thank you so much for tuning in, and we want you all to know to be blessed, and we are grateful for you. All right. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.